In this video, we're going to take a look at the constituents in the product Super Male Vitality. So the first constituent in this product is Tribulus terrestris. The second is Suma root, then Ashwagandha, MACA, Avena sativa, which is wild oats, Tongkat Ali, Catuaba, Puama, and fulvic acid. Here is a picture of Tribulus terrestris and its fruit. The historical and ethnomedicinal uses of Tribulus terrestris include its use as a tonic and aphrodisiac. In Ayurvedic medicine, it's used to treat impotence and sexual debility. In Bulgaria, it's also used to treat impotence. In TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, it's used to treat sexual dysfunction. In Unani medicine, a hybrid between Greek and Arabic medicine, it is used as a general tonic. In a study conducted with rats, extracts from Tribulus terrestris activated the NRF2, which is an antioxidant responsive pathway, and hemoxygenase to increase testosterone as well as sexual behavior. It did this by inhibiting the nuclear factor kappa B pathways. In this experiment, overtrained rats were given Tribulus terrestris, which was shown to increase or maintain the testosterone to cortisol ratio, as well as increase the amount of androgen receptor and IGF-1 receptor. You can see that at the bottom where it says O plus TT, that means overtrained plus given the Tribulus terrestris, and you can see the darker bands indicating that more of the receptors are present, as well as the figure at the bottom right. A study of infertile males showed that Tribulus terrestris increased DHT, which might be indicating that it's acting on 5-alpha reductase, and increased sperm count and motility, which might be related to an increase in mitochondrial function in the sperm. Other studies of Tribulus terrestris indicated an increase in testosterone, as well as some pro-erectile activities which may be related to nitric oxide. We'll go into a little bit on how the steroids work. On the right side of the screen, you can see the steroid hormone SH interacting with the steroid hormone receptor SHR, and how it can go right to the nucleus and bind to DNA and activate transcription. Or on the left side of the screen, growth factors GF can interact with their receptors and then transduce a signal, ST for signal transduction, that interacts with the steroid hormone receptor SHR. This interaction between signal transduction pathways and steroid receptors is called crosstalk. I'm going to take a brief look at some of the components in Tribulus terrestris. Some of these are protodiosins, which are steroidal saponins, and what I'd like you to recognize is you see the steroid nucleus at the bottom of the screen, and how in the middle of the protodiosin molecule is that same type of steroid nucleus. So whether that means that these type of products can act as substrates for the enzymes to actually increase testosterone, or whether they actually target the enzymes themselves to boost their activity, is not currently. Another molecule found in Tribulus is N-transferryltyramine, and it's kind of interesting that it inhibits nitric oxide and prostaglandin E2 in macrophages, and also in computer models it binds estrogen receptor alpha. However, it's not currently known whether that's going to transition to a agonist or antagonist activity of the estrogen receptor, because we don't really know how the helix 12 conformation is going to change, but it does appear that it acts similar to estradiol in its manner of crosstalk to exert anti-inflammatory activity. Tribulus also seems to increase libido in women. Just a note of caution, herb supplements, pharmaceuticals can suffer from contamination, whether it's heavy metal, or the wrong part of the plant is used, or something has been spiked. So this affects herb supplements and pharmaceuticals, as you can see at the bottom, where 13,000 bottles of Xarelto were recalled due to a microbial contamination. Now this can also occur in herbs and supplements if they're stored or processed incorrectly, so it is something to keep in mind. You also need to keep in mind that sometimes there will be no contaminants, but the science is incomplete, or the logic faulty behind the science, such as the case of Vioxx, where they were blocking a COX-2 enzyme and failed to appreciate that COX-2 was not all bad. It had some good, and when you block it, you block the bad as well as the good. This constituent is Suma, also called Habanthe eriantha. It's also known as Fafia or Brazilian ginseng, although it's not related to the regular ginseng. And in South America, it's also known as paratudo, which is like a cure-all. Some of the constituents in Suma include fafic acid, beta-ectotestosterone, as well as faficide. Also notice the kind of steroid nucleus structure contained within these constituents. In mice, extracts of Fafia, Suma, increased estradiol and progesterone concentrations in female mice and increased testosterone concentrations in male mice. In addition, in rats, Fafia, Suma, had a stimulatory effect on libido and decreased what the authors called sexual sluggishness. Constituent is ashwagandha, Withania somnifera, called Indian ginseng, although it's not really a ginseng. It's known as an adaptogen, and here's the structure with afferent A. You can notice the kind of structure resembling the steroidal nucleus in this chemical as well. We're going to revisit this study since it also included the effects of ashwagandha in addition to that of Tribulus. In the table at the top, you'll see Tribulus as well as ashwagandha increased testosterone to levels higher than that in the controls. However, Tribulus was not significantly different than sildenafil, which is like a Viagra molecule, and ashwagandha had less testosterone than sildenafil. But if you look at the bottom, you'll see that both Tribulus and ashwagandha had lower levels of lipid peroxidation marker malondialdehyde, MDA. Increased lipid peroxidation in the sildenafil may be related to its increased expression of nuclear factor kappa B, as seen in the middle figure at the bottom, compared to that of ashwagandha and Tribulus. So in rats with opiate addiction, treatment with ashwagandha increased the steroids, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, as well as luteinizing hormone, LH. In this figure, you can get an idea of steroid metabolism. With the arrows representing the various enzymes, you can see how progesterone is a precursor to testosterone, which is a precursor to estradiol. Adding ashwagandha to an exercise program resulted in less muscle damage, increased testosterone, and increased fat loss. With afferent A was shown to decrease bone resorption and increase bone growth, but lack the estrogenic effects like estradiol has in the uterus. In addition, ashwagandha also seemed to help lower cortisol levels in stress in anxious adults. It also seems not to be a CYP3A4 inhibitor. A study using about 10 times the dose of ashwagandha did show that there was some adverse effect on sexual behavior in rats, probably owing to the sedative activity in ashwagandha. MACA, Epimedium mayeni, for a little bit, which is grown in the Andean highlands, like in Peru. MACA's reputation for potency is well regarded in China, and I've heard sometimes the whole harvest will be purchased and shipped to China. One component of MACA are the macamides, of which benzyl oleamide is a member. And in mice, it increased superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase activity in the brain, muscle, and liver. And it also protected against exercise-induced fatigue, which was thought to be due to modulated energy metabolism and improved antioxidant status. And here is a picture of the macamide benzyl oleamide. In some studies, MACA was shown to increase testosterone, at least in rats. In other studies, there doesn't seem to be an association with an increase in testosterone. However, it does look like MACA increases sperm motility, which could be directly related to effects on mitochondrial function, as well as on libido, perhaps through nitric oxide or some other hormone or transmitter, or maybe an increase in signal transduction or receptor activity. The next